Polk County is growing, and fast. With more residents and visitors comes more traffic, congestion, and wear on our transportation infrastructure. As one of the fastest growing counties in Florida, the transportation challenges we face today will only increase as our population continues to rise. Transportation isn't just about cars. To ease the strain on our roads, we're investing in alternative options like bike trails, public transit, and passenger rail. By promoting these alternatives, we aim to not only help reduce traffic, but offer safer, greener ways to get around.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Envision 2050 Live Public Forum. I'm your host, Miles Vance, and I'm joined by some of the directors and administrators from the Transportation Planning Organization today. We're going to talk about the long-range transportation plan for Polk County, which is called Envision 2050. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest today. I'm joined by Ryan Kordick. He's the TPO director, executive director, excuse me. Julia Davis, immediately to my right, is the Transportation Planning Administrator. And William Roll is the project manager and consultant at Kimley Horn. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I want to start by reminding our audience that you can ask questions in the Facebook Live chat at any time. And immediately after our discussion here, we're going to answer some of your questions in a live Q&A format. But I'd like to start with you, Director Ryan. What is the TPO? What is the Transportation Planning Organization?
Sure, and first off, before I talk about the TPO, just thank you for hosting us here today, PGTV, and looking forward to the opportunity to talk to the public about our long-range transportation plan and this opportunity we have through Facebook Live. So hopefully it's an informative discussion and everybody gets a good handle on what it is that we're doing. So first off, what is the TPO? So we're a multi-jurisdictional planning agency in Polk County. We include really all the local governments in Polk County. We have a 23 member governing board that helps us set policy and decisions for what it is that we do in Polk County. They help guide the long-range transportation plan. What the LRTP is, or long-range transportation plan, that's as it implies, it's about a 25-year look out into the future to look at what are the transportation needs that we have in Polk County, and what are those key and critical projects that we need to bring us into the future. So we do this process. We go through the process about every 5 years, and right now is when we're going through a major update, and again looking out to the year 2050.
And one thing I want to highlight is that people hear 2050 and they think, oh my gosh, that's forever. That's 25 years away. But these projects that are being worked on, they're really relevant right now. And so talk about how the LRTP, the long-range transportation plan, is relevant now and far into the future.
Yeah, no, great question. So there's a number of projects, and I think we have a slide or two to share with the public that shows some of these projects. I'll be going through a few of these now and speaking of them. So we have projects that we've recently completed, like I think what's shown here is the intersection at State Road 540 and US 17 in Winter Haven. This is a project that was in a previous long-range transportation plan, and actually what you see here was a photo taken I think about a year or so ago, and it opened to traffic fully about a year ago. That was also a TPO priority project, and we were able to secure some state and federal money to make this improvement in Winter Haven. Some of the projects, and this was just in the news about a week or two ago. This is the John Singletary Bridge, commonly known as the US 98 or Peace River Bridge there, just east of Fort Meade. This was in our long-range transportation plan. It was also a TPO priority project, and again was just completed again just a few weeks ago by the Florida Department of Transportation. Another project that maybe if you've driven along the Polk Parkway between Lakeland Highlands Road and US 98 in South Lakeland, and you look towards the south side of the Polk Parkway, and maybe if you haven't done it already, maybe the next time you're on that road, if you do it, you'll see the construction of the Fort Fraser Trail on the south side of the Polk Parkway. And this graphic or aerial here kind of shows generally where that route takes it from the Fort Fraser Trail on the east side of US 98 over towards Orlando Health, the Orlando Health Medical Campus, which of course is under construction. And then that's planned to go north on Lakeland Highlands Road and join up with the city's lake-to-lake trail system. So we're not just talking roads too. This is multimodal. It's trails, it's transit, and projects like that as well.
Exactly. No matter how you get around, you know, this is an organization and a project that benefits everybody in the county. And sort of touching on how it benefits everybody, a big part of your mission is public participation, getting the public's input and hearing what the people want and what they see in their daily commutes, in their recreational activities, seeing, you know, how they interact with the roads and what they want out of the roads. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, exactly. We want to hear from the public. There's a lot that we're not going to talk about today that's, that regards the process that we follow for the long-range transportation plan. It's a convoluted, complicated process. It's a technical process. This is high level today, but just understand that we have a very elaborate process that helps us forecast and helps us determine what are those needed transportation projects that we need for the future. But really, one of the important things that a TPO like us, the real important part of this process is engaging the public. Any one of the three of us up here can prepare a plan for future transportation projects, but the real value of us in this process that we're following with the LRTP is to engage the public so they can let us know, hey, are these projects good or not? Do they make sense? Or are they in the right area? We know everybody drives and the roads, and you might be stopped at a stoplight or experiencing some congestion, and everybody has the opinion of, well, I wish they would improve this road, or I wish there was a road that maybe went from here to there, would make my life easier. So we know everybody has an opinion like that, so this is an opportunity for them to let us know and react to some of the things that we're showing in the future.
Absolutely, and a lot of those interactivity features can be found on the website polkenvision2050.com, and we have a short video that we're going to play now that will demonstrate how the public can get involved on that website. You can have a say in planning for the future of transportation in Polk County. The Polk Transportation Planning Organization members are seeking input to help make sure the county's transportation system meets the needs of all users as part of their long-range transportation plan, known as Envision 2050. Share your feedback on how we can help improve roadways for daily commutes, trails for recreation, and sidewalks to engage with your community. Here's how you can get involved. Visit www.polkenvision2050.com. Here you will find continuously updated information on the project. Scroll down to find where you can submit feedback using multiple interactive features. First is the interactive map, where you can mark specific locations in Polk County and identify opportunities for improvements and voice your concerns. This is a great way to show us exactly where you want to see changes. You can also use the comment wall to share other thoughts, concerns, and ideas for transportation in the county. The survey helps us to understand how you travel and how you would like the county to move forward. To help us understand your priorities, use the theme ranking function to show us what matters most to you. Lastly, if you have a specific question or want to reach someone directly, TPO staff can be contacted by emailing envision2050@polk-county.net. The focus of Envision 2050 is building a better community for you and your family to live, work, and play. Thank you for being part of the planning. And hopefully that gives you folks an idea of how you can get involved. And I think one thing that's really stood out to me about the whole engagement offered by TPO is that they'll answer your questions. You can email them. These are not faceless government officials hiding away in some far off office building. They're people that you can talk to right now by emailing them or getting in touch on the website. One thing I want to talk about is how do these projects get built? Because the TPO is not actively building these projects. William, could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's largely about partnerships, and here we've got a slide up that just shows the depth of the partnerships. Many of the projects I'm about to go through have been in the planning process for several decades. These are major projects. These are projects that cost many times $1 or $2 billion for just an individual project. And so I know recently there's been a lot of talk about the I-4 improvements that were quickly implemented from US 27 over into Osceola County, added additional lanes, and folks recognize an immediate benefit in terms of reduction in congestion. Yes. But last week, if you're driving during peak time, you can see it's congested again. Well, thankfully, there's a lot of other projects that are going to follow that project. Fundamentally, there's both the planning aspect, but there's the partnerships. And I really think that shows through here. So in terms of improvements on I-4, there's a widening on I-4 that's going to continue to happen from US 27 on into Orange County. Some of that's being accelerated through the Moving Florida Forward projects. So there's going to be some areas where I-4 is actually going to be 14 lanes wide. In some areas. Those are DOT projects. But then there's also other projects, including extending the Point Siena Parkway, which right now kind of ends in the US 1792 area, and actually connecting it up to I-4 at the 429 Expressway. So you could actually get off of the turnpike way up in Orange County and drive all the way down to 429 and continue on all the way down to Point Siena and other areas of eastern Polk County. One of the big roads that we're dealing with and DOT is doing planning studies of right now is the Central Polk Parkway, which would be basically a limited access toll road that would parallel US 27 that would connect to that Point Siena Parkway extension and then connect to US 27 or State Road 60 down in the Lake Wales area. And then lastly, a project to highlight that's in the planning stage is the Southport Connector that would actually go from the Point Siena Parkway over to the Florida Turnpike over in Osceola County, and that project's in the planning phase. So you can see here we got DOT, we got Florida Turnpike, we've got Central Florida Expressway Authority, just in one area of the county in terms of improvements. So if we go to the next slide, one of our other major partners is also DOT, but also the transit agencies. And Ryan, I think you got some partnerships you want to mention as well.
Yeah, I talked earlier about the composition of the TPO, and William certainly touched on it to demonstrate all the different entities that are involved in transportation, and I guess it's complicated, and that's one way to maybe look at the TPO as while FDOT might have a plan, or the Florida Turnpike Enterprise has a plan, or the county has a plan for what they want to do with transportation and roads. Think of the TPO as kind of the umbrella, or we kind of capture and we coordinate with all those entities. So one way of looking at our long-range transportation plan, and a lot of the efforts of the TPO is that they're coordinated and they're comprehensive in nature. So we have to kind of look at all of it and hopefully bring it all together. That's what makes it very complicated, but I think it's also what makes our efforts, it gives a lot of strength to what we do, in that it's again a comprehensive long-range plan that considers whether it's a small maybe county collector road or city collector road or something really big like a Central Polk Parkway or I-4.
Well, and it's great to see that level of collaboration, and then again, it's all about meeting the needs of the people who use the systems. And real quick, before we get to the issues that are impacting the long-range transport plan, I want to make sure that we talk about public transportation, because not everybody uses the highways and the roads to get around. A lot of people use buses, rail, bikes, whatever alternative methods of transportation there might be. So, Julie, could you talk a little bit about public transportation and the concerns that the strides that you're making in public transportation with the LRTP?
Yes, Miles, thank you. So good. The Polk TPO works in partnership with the transit provider in Polk County, that's Citrus Connection. And we are in the process right now of doing a major update of the transportation development plan for Citrus Connection. And so this map shows the transit needs that have come as a result of that. This was done with public involvement surveys and stakeholder interviews, along with the desire for extended service hours and extra days of service. The transit needs identified were the Sunrail extension. On this map, there's a line that goes from the logo for Sunrail in Osceola County down through Polk County, through Laufman, Davenport, Haines City, and on over to Auburndale and Lakeland. Those are the proposed runs of where the Sunrail would go. The other items on this map are bus rapid transit. The gray colored line from Lakeland down US 98 to Bartow is one example of a bus rapid transit line. And then the yellowish line from Lakeland down to South Lakeland on Florida Avenue is another bus rapid transit. Bus rapid transit is it's like an express route. It's a quicker way to get around for commuters. Another express route service that has been requested over and over again is a route from Lakeland over to Hillsborough County, perhaps so people could catch an an airplane out of Tampa, and US 27. And finally, there's a service called microtransit, which is where the transit system picks an area and provides dial-a-ride or demand response service. There's two on this map. There's a pink zone for the West Lakeland Airport area, and the greenish zone that is the Innovation District where the Polytech University is.
Okay.
The additional service that are identified as transit needs are another type of microtransit is the squeeze. This is running right now in Lakeland and in the Bartow and Lake Wales, but they're considering adding it in Winter Haven and Haines City. So that's the transit needs.
The squeeze is interesting. I think I'm correct in saying it's the only public golf cart transportation in the country, is that correct?
Yes, it is. Okay. The squeeze is presently offered with golf carts, and they have to coordinate very carefully with the Florida Department of Transportation to determine where the squeeze routes go. And then, of course, if it's raining or cold, then they have to make adjustments. Okay. That service is accessible for ADA, as a matter of fact. Wow, so this slide represents capital and technology and policy needs. Buses run on roads. There's always a need for new buses. The Lakeland Intermodal Center and Park and Rides and the East Polk Maintenance Facility and enhanced bus infrastructure, nice shelters and things. And other services like the Universal Access Partnership and an enhanced marketing program to help Citrus Connection tie everything in together. Those are some of the needs.
Okay, wonderful. And going on, continuing to talk about different needs. Obviously, we know that Polk County is experiencing a massive amount of growth, but that's just one of the issues that's facing the county when it comes to transportation. Ryan, could you talk a little bit about the issues that are influencing the LRTP when you're making these decisions and plans?
Sure, and I'm gonna turn over to William in just a minute, but that is one thing to consider, and it's a difficult one in that it's real easy to look at Polk County, drive around Polk County and look at the way the traffic is today, look at all the developments that we've seen come underway in the last several years, and think in terms of what the transportation needs are now. What really makes it fun in some ways, certainly for us, I guess the techie transportation planners, is, well, what's Polk County going to look like in 25 years? So. Right. We're really looking through the eyes or the filter of, again, what is it going to look like in the future and with a much higher population. And William Rowland, his firm, helped us out. A very big component of the LRTP is just that, is defining what's the future population employment going to look like in Polk County in the future. And I'm sure he has a few things he can add to that.
So you're being a little modest. So we're actually the fastest growing county in the state. We're the 7th fastest growing county in the country, and we're tied for 2nd in terms of fastest growing metropolitan areas. So by the year 2050, we're looking at a population of about 1.2 million people here in Polk County. And when we did the 2045 plan, and we go back and look at our forecast, we nailed it. We anticipated the growth that everybody's been seeing the last 5 years. We anticipated that was going to occur. So you go ahead to the next slide. One of the things that also makes us unique is our location. Typically an MPO gets established because they're part of a metropolitan area. In the case of Polk County, we're actually included within or part of 4 different metropolitan areas here in our county, and you can just kind of see the map. If we went back 20 years ago, this wasn't the case. But as Orlando and Tampa areas continue to grow, we continue to see a lot of the influence with that. So on the next slide, one of the things that we hear is just a lot of frustration about the traffic. But we've had a lot of impactful changes, and just here on the screen, a women's and children's hospital in Lakeland. You don't have to go to Orlando or Tampa for those services. We just had graduation ceremonies back in May. It just wasn't high school graduates, but a lot of these were coming out with skills, and there's colleges and universities here. A lot of programs that are workforce ready. Most employers in this county, if they could hire 2 people right now, they would. And then lastly, I'll leave it off on a transportation note. You can actually fly to about 7 different destinations from the Lakeland Linder International Airport, because we have our own commercial airline operation. So a lot of the things we've always been dependent on Orlando or Tampa, we're starting to enjoy that here. Our children can go to college and come home and have a career here in Polk County.
Yeah. And I think it's, it highlights how we don't exist in a vacuum. Obviously, the growth that we see here is influenced by the growth in Orlando and Tampa, but it's also our own growth as well. Yeah. And one of the reasons for that is Polk County is huge. That's right. It's 2,000 square miles. I mean, bigger than Rhode Island. And so when we look at the size of the county, we have to think not only about the needs of the people who are living in Lakeland and Winter Haven and these metropolitan areas, but also the rural. Right. So talk a little bit about balancing those different needs and what you look for when you're making these plans. Yeah, so I think in a few minutes we're going to have some additional information to share in terms of some of the distinctive differences in terms of different parts of the county. One of the challenges we have, though, is just the money to be able to do this, and we got a graphic up here that kind of shows 3 different pots of money. This is from the 2030 to the 2050 time frame, so about a 20-year time period, and we've got about $500 million in terms of state-controlled major project money, about another $500 million in terms of other state roads, and then about $4.2 billion in terms of county roads. That seems like a lot of money, but the reality is you can multiply these amounts by about 6 or 8. And that's the nature of the need. So that's one of the big challenges. It's one of the reasons why the long-range plan is so important, is because we got to make sure that we're picking the right projects, right, Ryan?
No, absolutely. The most key or critical projects are really what we're after in the long-range transportation plan. I think one of the things we prepare is an overall needs map of all the needs. But again, we're only able to fund a small portion of those with the amount of funds that we have. And while this looks like a lot of money, and it is, it's not a lot of money when it comes to things like the need to widen Interstate 4 or build a new limited access toll roads, for instance, in the East Central Polk Parkway. Dozens, maybe 100 or more different intersections around the county, not to even get into things like all the multi-use trails, the sidewalk needs that we have, and as well as all the transit projects that Julie just discussed. So it's the highest priority, the most critical projects is really what we're focused on. Absolutely.
And how do you determine that? What part of it is public involvement? What part of it is studies and measuring? What's the balance like there?
Well, we look at a lot of different things, like for instance, on things like the needs for sidewalks or trails. We look at some of the corridors that have the highest crash rates, or we track transportation safety. So if we've had severe injuries and fatalities on some of our roads that involve bicyclists and pedestrians, we're going after some of those corridors, and those are, relatively speaking, the higher priorities when it comes to those projects. Roads like, say, US 27, where we get a lot of public involvement, not just as part of our long-range transportation plan update, but even some of the other planning efforts that we've done. Polk County residents have made it loud and clear to us that transportation in Northeast Polk County, northeast part of the county, needs some improvement. So we hear that regularly. So we're talking about things like up on I-4, the interchange at 27 and I-4, as well as things like the East Central Polk Parkway and a number of other improvements, because that's one area of the county that, if you compare it to say, Winter Haven area or the Lakeland area, doesn't have the road network that those areas have. That those 2 areas, took 100 years or more for them to build. There's a good amount of infrastructure in place when it comes to transportation. In Northeast Polk, a lot of it has been so frequent, and it's, relatively speaking, so new. Yeah. There is a need for a lot of new roads in that area of the county. So that's some of what we look at.
Yeah. So we talked about Northeast Polk as well, and another area that you've highlighted is those metropolitan areas. So when we think about how needs differ, what different needs are you seeing when we think about urban versus rural?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
When we think about urban versus rural, and those different, the people who live in those areas.
Yeah.
How are you balancing that? Because it is a limited resource question. We were talking about different budgets, different metropolitan areas.
There's,
what do you do to balance that?
So in the more urban areas, like in Lakeland and Winter Haven. When I say Lakeland and Winter Haven, I'm not necessarily just talking about the city limits. I mean the broader area. The transportation needs are a lot different. If you look at the map that Julia reviewed earlier, it shows a lot of transit needs and expanded service and new and additional routes in those areas. Also, we're looking at things like we call complete streets, which is maybe looking at some of the major roads, state arterials in particular, and they might have been built 40, 50 years ago. They might have served their purpose then, but with the way the communities are now and the amount of growth that these cities have and what they're anticipated to have in the future, we need maybe better bicycle and pedestrian facilities, more transit services, things like that. So it's a different kind of need in those areas, whereas again, if you go to Northeast Polk, and this could be North Lakeland, South Lakeland, Southeast Winter Haven, maybe the northern portions of Lake Wales, we need more road and grid network again, because there's a lot of new growth in those areas. They just don't have the kind of infrastructure that again the more mature urban areas in Lakeland and Winter Haven have. So that's how the plan is kind of segregated in that regard.
Yeah. So one of the things we talk about is the Northeast Polk area, the Haines City, Davenport area, is going to have a population the size of Lakeland occur in 30 years.
Wow.
Now Lakeland evolved over 100 years. All the roads that you might enjoy in Lakeland or Winter Haven, they weren't built in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
They were built many, many decades ago. And so it's the distinction in terms of the growth. When you hit Northeast Polk, they need everything.
Yes.
They need everything. On a countywide basis, we're all reliant on I-4 and State Road 60 and US 98 and major transit service that connects different communities. And if you live in a rural area, you're probably traveling on one of those roads to either get to a city within Polk County or to go to Tampa or Orlando. But I think that's the gravity of the situation is. Not everybody's going to get the same kind of improvements. There's not a lot of opportunity in the core of Lakeland or Winter Haven to widen a road.
Yeah. Right.
And so there's those other modes that we're going to have to rely on.
A good example too, when you look at Lakeland or Winter Haven, the city of Winter Haven right now, they're trying to extend Pollard Road, which is on the southern part of the city. Connects on the southern end. They're trying to connect that with what's called a logistics parkway, which would make a connection basically between Thompson Nursery Road, Eloise Loop Road, and State Road 60. That's an example of a smaller type of road improvement that we're talking about in that area. Lakeland, you could look back, it's been about 10 years or so since it's been built, but the extension of Edgewood Drive in Lakeland is a good example of what we're kind of looking at there, where we extended that road from Florida Avenue over to Sykes-Hardin Boulevard, and look at how important that road is now. Yeah. But again, we're not forecasting or planning for any big, new, significant road improvements in those areas. They pretty much have what they have, and it's about making those small little connections.
Perfect. Well, before we get into our last little section here, I want to just remind the audience that they can type their questions in the chat on Facebook Live, and we will, after this section, we'll go into a short break and we'll sort of comb through your questions, and if it's something that we are able to answer, we will get it answered for you. If we do not have time to answer it on this program, rest assured that one member of the TPO team will reach out to you and answer your question, because all these questions are important for all of us. So that brings me to the final section, which is how can the public get involved? We already saw that video earlier, but reiterate that importance of people telling us what they need.
Yeah, well, thank you. And we've tried to make it as easy as possible. So as the video that was shown earlier shows, we've got a website, a project website that, it's up and running right now. There's the ability to go on, and I think we have a comment wall. There's an interactive map where you can go in and put your own comment and make a suggestion for your own project. There's some other features there. The other thing about it is we're updating it over time. So as we go, for about the next 6 months or so, as we're building this long-range transportation plan update, you can go on and get updates there. There'll be new videos, et cetera. One of the things I don't think we've talked about yet is, well, you're working on this great plan, but when is it due? And so we're in June right now. We hope to adopt the plan by December of this year. So really over the next 5-6 months, we'll be, again, kicking out a lot of new information, and people can go to the website. We don't want to just hide behind the website. One thing that I did want to offer is the director of the TPO here that we need to probably do maybe a little bit better job of is in terms of getting out there to the public, is if you have say an existing forum, a community meeting, it could be a Rotary, a Kiwanis Club, whatever, and you're looking for, you got a lot of transportation interest, would like to hear from somebody from the TPO staff, we'd be more than happy to go out and meet with you at your event to talk about the transportation needs in Polk County. That's something we'd be happy to do. So I just wanted to put that out there. And again, I think we've got our contact information. People can see that, or I'll just state for the record, our main telephone number is 863-534-6486. And again, that's something we'd be happy to do.
And of course, for the modern consumer, they can always find you on social media as well.
We're there too.
Yep. Okay, perfect. Well, I'd like to thank the audience for joining us. We're going to take a short break here, and we're going to come through all your questions, and we'll be right back after this break. All right, welcome back, everybody. We've gone ahead and pulled up your questions here, and some of these were sent in by email before the stream, and some of them were put in the Facebook chat. So we're going to go ahead and get into those now. The first question is about Thompson Nursery Road and the realignment happening there. They want to know about the planned route and when it's going to be done, essentially. I know it's happening in different phases, and some of those phases are already completed. Can you give us a little bit of insight on that?
Sure. So Thompson Nursery Road, it's a county road, and it's significant for a number of reasons. As much as anything, with all the growth that's occurred in Southeast Winter Haven, Northwest Lake Wales, there's just really limited options, to get east to west through that part of the county. The road's significant too. It would be one of the only contiguous 4-lane corridors between the Polk Parkway and US 27, and I'd be adding the Winter Lake Road part of that with Thompson Nursery as far as making that connection between the Polk Parkway and 27. So it's important in that regard. In terms of the route, I know that the county they're still studying the part that's basically in the area of Juanita and northeast Juanita, and there's a couple alternatives that they're looking at there, and I think they're going to go to the Board of County Commissioners. This is the roads and drainage staff. They're going to go to the Board of County Commissioners in July and basically select an alternative and for that part of the alignment. Most of the rest of it is pretty well figured out or built. On the far eastern part, it's just simply a 2 to 4 lane widening, and that's only partially funded, so there's still the need for additional funding right there. It's actually something that we're doing through the TPO as we're applying for some grant funds to try to help supplement some of the county funds on that portion of the project. But again, it's a really important road in that part of the area. It's actually been something that's been in the long range plan for over 20 years, so it's again sorely needed.
And if you think about it, currently you get off of the Polk Parkway at 540 and you take it over and it kind of ends. This in essence would be a continuation all the way over the US 27, and that Central Polk Parkway project that I mentioned earlier, the interchange of US 27 would be very close to that. So this is part of an overall system of improvements in the county.
And wonderful. And Ryan, you mentioned something that I want to reiterate for our viewers is that a lot of this information happens, it comes out at these boardroom meetings. And one of the things that we offer here at PGTV is we broadcast those meetings, and we have a news program that comes out bi-weekly afterwards. So viewers who are interested in learning about what occurs at the boardroom meetings can watch those videos on our website, and that's polk-county.tv. The next question came from the Facebook live chat, and it was, what is the makeup of the 23-member TPO board? They're in particular, they're concerned with asking about if Davenport, Haines City, Lake Alfred, Poinciana, and other Northeast Polk population areas are fairly represented. Obviously, that's a huge population center, so they want to see that their cities are there.
It's a great question. And we just recently expanded the makeup of our board based on the 2020 census and all our population gains. And in the case of Davenport, in Lake Alfred, they were used to be non-voting members of the TPO. That they now have full voting membership for those two jurisdictions. We also increased the number of members for City of Winter Haven and City of Haines City. Again, they were increased, and overall on the TPO, the quick way of explaining is we have really everyone in Polk County. There's 18 jurisdictions. The only ones that are not included on the TPO, really due to their size, because they're under 250 in population, are Hillcrest Heights and Highland Park, the two very small municipalities in Polk. Point Siena is covered by the county commission district for that part of the county, which I believe is Martha Santiago. So they're not an incorporated community, so they don't have a policy board or elected officials amongst themselves, but they're represented through the county.
Right. So it sounds like Northeast Polk is very well represented in that.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so we're going to get into some more of the questions that were sent in before the live stream now. This question is about maintenance. So what does TPO do, or does TPO do anything with maintenance as opposed to just building new roads?
We have to take that into account when the bar chart that William referred to earlier, looking at the overall amount of funding. Well, one of the things that we have to do is account for, well, how much maintenance is required. That's actually one of the very first things that we need to take into account, because taking care of the transportation system is very important. The potholes, the conditions of the roads, et cetera. Right now, if you look at the Florida Department of Transportation, what they call their draft or work program, or adopted work program even, it has upwards of $300 million to resurface the state highway system in Polk County in the next 5 years. I think they're looking at about 27–30% of the state highway system is going to be getting resurfaced based on the current conditions of the roadway. We have to take that into account. That happens first before we can look at, well, what would it cost if we wanted to do a new road here or there. So with the county, the different jurisdictions, it's all the same. City of Lakeland has a number of roads, Winter Haven, Haines City. Of course, Polk County has a very large network. They've got to worry and take care of that first before we can talk about adding any kind of new capacity. So that's really the number one priority, actually.
Yeah, that graph that I showed earlier, that's just for capacity projects. That's just for widening projects.
Yeah.
The maintenance and operation money comes off of the top, both for the county revenues and the state. And I can tell you the reason why particularly the state boxes are as small as they are is how much money that we're having to spend on maintenance.
Right.
The DOT district that we're in recently reported to us that in the last 2 years the cost to resurface the road went up 55%. If there happened, and by state law, they have to pay for maintenance and resurfacing first. It comes off the budget. And what's left is what we're allowed to, be able to expand roadways. So it's one of the challenges we have in terms of being able to fund the plan. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. Well, we got some questions that just came in here. Let's see. So this one came in on Facebook, and they're concerned about growing traffic in the next 5 years. So they want to know if there's any projects that are currently underway that are going to be targeted for completion in the next 5 years to deal with traffic and outsized capacity on these roads. Any information on that?
The quick answer is yes.
Okay.
So this is the long-range transportation plan looking out 25 years. We monitor and track traffic information level service on over 1,400 miles of major roads in Polk County. So we're always looking at those, and in the next 5 years, we have about $2 billion worth of state, federal, local investment on the transportation system, whether it's resurfacing, widening roads, intersection improvements. It's honestly too much to cover right now because there's literally hundreds of projects. But some of the major ones, though, we reviewed earlier. Interstate 4 is a big one. There's going to be a very big improvement. The 2 lanes that have been added either side of Interstate 4 about 2 months ago in April, there's a bigger project that's going to widen that out to 12 to 14 lanes. That's going to start construction in about a year, and that'll be from west of US 27 over to actually through Osceola County and into Orange. It's going to be really a seamless improvement from US 27 all the way in and through downtown Orlando. That's a very big one. That's nearly $1 billion. There's also going to be, as part of that project, a very big interchange reconstruction at US 27 in Northeast Polk. That'll be underway again in about a year or so. I know folks in Lakeland, not to just talk about Northeast Polk, they're seeing the construction that's ongoing at Exit 38, State Route 33, and Interstate 4, the northeast part of the city of Lakeland there. That's about a $200 million project that's underway right now. It's going to take a few years to get completed. It's going to really improve what is really an outdated intersection that was last received major attention in the 1960s. So this is going to bring it more up to date and up to speed with the current transportation conditions. So those are a couple projects that we have underway. The last one I would point out, it's about $500 million that's under construction right now. If you've driven between Bartow and Winter Haven, really over the last year or two, you've seen a lot of dirt moving about halfway between Bartow and Winter Haven, and the Florida's Turnpike Enterprise is constructing a new limited access toll road from the Polk Parkway all the way down to State Road 60, and that's something that the northern portion between US 17 and the Polk Parkway, that'll be probably open to construction in probably 2 to 3 years. It'll be closer to 2030 by the time we get the part down to State Road 60 implemented. But one way of looking at that is you'll have that limited access road down to State Road 60 east of Bartow. It's going to make East Bartow, Alturas, South Winter Haven, that area, where it's probably over a half an hour to get to Interstate 4, something like that. With that improvement, it's going to be 12 to 15 minutes then to get from that part of the county up to Interstate 4. So that's a huge improvement and really going to change things in that part of the county.
Okay, and this is the last question I think we have time for. And I think you might have kind of just already answered it a little bit, but maybe you can expand on the specifics of funding a little bit as well. This person asked, what type of projects are more immediately achievable given funding right now? So sort of concerned with the budgetary restrictions that might be in place. Do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, some of those initial projects that, again, we've already covered. Those are, I guess, the highest priority or tier 1 or however you want to couch them for the long range plan. We've kind of touched on those, but there are some other projects that are I guess close on the heels of those, and maybe I'll take a break here. Let William answer one or two of those.
So one of the new goals that we added to this transportation was implementation, because it's getting really challenged to implement projects. And so one of the strategies that we're going to balance as we're picking the projects to go in the next phases of the plan is making sure that we're including a mix of things that can be implemented over that 5-year time frame. Yeah. Because a number of these projects, like Central Polk Parkway, East, that's been in the planning phases for 20 years. Yeah. It's a multi-billion-dollar project. We've got to keep funding a project like that so that it ultimately gets delivered, but we can't go all in on just one major project. We got to spread the wealth. And in some cases, it's intersection improvement projects that either DOT or the county might do. Oftentimes, those yield a huge amount of benefit, because when you're driving down 98 between Lakeland and Bartow, people don't go and say, "Oh, I was stopped for no reason in the middle of the road." No, they're stopped where there's a traffic signal, and we can make improvements at locations like that.
Another, if I can, just to add on to that, another way of looking at that too, and we had this discussion at our board meeting just last week, but one of the ways we're trying to think in terms of more immediately, trying to do things sooner rather than later, is we've had a number of highway projects, especially at the state level, that have been needed, warranted for a number of years. We've had trouble getting construction funds for them, so we've kind of curtailed those projects. Instead of looking at an 8 or 10 mile capacity project, a 2 to 4 or 4 to 6 lane widening over, again, a long distance that's very expensive, trying to focus then at the major intersections and make improvements there. That's where the bottlenecks are occurring right now. So we're trying to, I guess, do some interim improvements, again, based on the amount of funds that we have. And we've been talking about that at the TPO level, and something we're trying to work out with the Florida Department of Transportation on a number of state highway corridors around the county.
Okay, wonderful. Well, this is the actual last question, and I want to remind the audience that if you still have questions that didn't get answered during this live stream just because of our time restrictions, you can email TPO staff or go to the polkenvision2050.com website and ask questions there, and they will get answered. TPO is really dedicated to answering your questions and hearing from you. So rest assured, if you have an extra question, or if you're watching this later on playback and you want to ask a question, feel free to email them. And this last question is for you, Ms. Julia. Are there plans to connect with surrounding counties to strengthen travel and public transit?
Wow. If we could go.
We talked about the bus routes earlier, going out to Tampa.
There are plans and interest between the adjoining counties, again, from Polk County over to Hillsborough County. And there are already connections between Polk County and Osceola County to get to the Ponciana Sunrail station, and also to connect up at the northern eastern corner of the county with links, again, to get to the Orlando area. And the transit systems throughout Florida are always chatting with each other about what they can do to make connections and service. So those are some of the choices and opportunities.
Wonderful. Well, I'd like to thank every one of you for joining us today. I really appreciate your time and your expertise on these questions, and I know our audience appreciates it as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank the audience for joining us. We're going to have another one of these events in October, and you can keep an eye out for announcements on that on our Facebook page. But until then, we'll see you next time.